Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reasonably Effective podcast. I'm Ten Types, joined by Uncommon Fossil. And are you ready to talk about very exciting things today, as always?
I am. Well, exciting, yes. Prepared, that's, you're used to my level of preparation, right? And I'm
Which is more
sure
than
I will.
mine.
That's true, but you will also be sorely disappointed in my lack of knowledge on things. I'm sure on numerous occasions because I think we're talking mechanics, and I don't know that I know all like 75 mechanics that have been in the Pokemon TCG over the history of the game.
Yeah, so we're talking about mechanics today because the Pokemon World Championships are just around the corner. They are around a week out of at the time of recording this, and at the time of posting, it'll be under a week. And at the
Yep.
World Championships, you will see presumably a new mechanic revealed or multiple, and we're going to talk about what that could be and what we want it to be, and also some of the mechanics in the game now and past ones. So mechanics it's a term that's tossed around a lot and can mean a lot of different things. What we're referring to, I'll just give some examples, which are going to be EXs and A-Specs,
Now
Radiant
that's
Pokemon.
lowercase ex's.
Yeah, I realized it was going to be complicated when I said it. Whatever, EXs, right? They're all like a mechanic, but we're not talking about um, like technically mechanics are like attacking and like the disco pile and stuff. That's not what we're talking about. I don't expect
Right.
us to get like a different Lost Zone thing or something like that. But yeah, we're gonna get some new type of Pokemon. Sometimes people count things like I mean, there are a lot of different lists out there. I did a video ranking the mechanics. I think I didn't include like Rapid Strike and stuff, but I included Amazing Rares, which aren't necessarily a mechanic. They're like a rarity, and I think I forgot some. But anyways, so Uncommon Fossil, you want to start us off with what we might be getting soon?
Yeah. And at first, when I said 75 mechanics, that was a joke. I don't know what the number is. And like you said, it depends how you count it. But there's a lot anyway, going back to the early days of the game. But so there were a couple articles on PokeBeach, a good news source with some of the information about what's coming out next year in Japanese sets, which potentially could tie into what mechanics to expect. One is there's going to be Battle Partners. That's the name, the Japanese name of the set coming out in January in Japan. So we get it March around internationally, maybe. I don't know. That's the name. And there's two decks they announced that are going to be part of it. And we don't get the decks probably internationally, but we'll get the cards anyway eventually. And the one's called Starter Set EX Stevens, Beldum, and Metagross EX. The other similarly, Starter Set EX Marnie's Morpeko and Grimmsnarl EX. So a couple things in that one. It seems like owner's Pokemon. There's a like Marnie's Morpeko seems to be an owner's Pokemon, where there's a trainer that owns the Pokemon. And then also the question of, does this mean tag teams? Is it Marnie's Morpeko and a Grimmsnarl EX, or is it Marnie's Morpeko and Grimmsnarl EX one Pokemon? Those are some of the questions there with that release. And then the other is they are releasing the Legends ZA, if that's the way it's said, next year, the video game, and that will, I assume, will have Mega Evolutions, which were in the game before. So does that mean Mega Evolutions are going to be coming back to the TCG?
Yeah, and so I think that by the way, it could be like none of this stuff comes to the TCG. It's something completely different. There's almost guaranteed to be a new mechanic revealed at the World Championship,
Yeah.
which it could actually. So we've seen the Stellar mechanic. It's not exactly a mechanic, but really it is, and that I don't think could be what's revealed at Worlds. It's actually out in Japan now. By the way, the World Championships. Um, they're played in the international format. So if you're from the Americas, Europe, pretty much everywhere except for Asia, that's the format that's being played in the World Championships. But there are cards that are out but not playable there, including Stellar Pokemon, which should not be what's revealed at the World Championships. But yeah, it could be like it's not owner's Pokemon. But let's talk about owner's Pokemon first, right? And so Uncommon Fossil and I, we have not been playing when they've come out, except for Lance's Charizard V, I think.
Right. So there's Lance's Charizard, which I'm trying to call up here. That was the one quote owner's Pokemon. Nothing very exciting. It was in the celebration set, a
Yeah, it
Charizard
was a
V.
promo actually. It wasn't in this set, and
Okay.
yeah,
I mean, it has the little Pikachu with the 2-5 on his cheeks.
yeah, it does.
icon. So okay, but it was connected with it, but it wasn't even in those packs with an attack that was okay. But it wasn't anything overly exciting, is what I'd say. So it didn't have any other cards that went with lances. So it was kind of, if that's what they're going to do, just some differently, slightly renamed Pokemon, that'd be very disappointing. But they had them as kind of packages combining with other cards in the past. So there, and this is going back to the Wizards of the Coast days. What I'm talking about, I'm not sure newer ones if they were past that. There aren't. I don't think any in what's would be the full expanded format. But like there's the Brox. There's a number of the trainers that have their own versions of the Pokemon. There's a Brox Primeape and such as that. That obviously have slightly different text on them than the regular ones. I'm not sure how that works out. I'm not sure if there's a general line of distinction from it. The Pokemon do have an image of Brock on them as well, but then there are three trainers that went along with the Brock's Pokemon. One was Brock's Protection, which would be considered a supporter now. I assume you attach Brock. It's a tool, actually. Sorry, I take that back completely. You attach this card to one of your Pokemon with Brock in its name, and then energy cards that are attached to that Pokemon can't be removed by opponent's attacks or trainer cards. So gives you some protection there. Things like one is a stadium that then resistance doesn't apply to attacks by Pokemon with Brock in its name. So you can get a little buff there. And the HPs are much lower, and the attack costs damage levels were much lower. So resistance was a bigger deal in the game. And then another one, the third trainer, you search your deck for a Pokemon or a basic or evolution card with Brock in its name. So, some cards to work with. You could have a trainer Pokemon as well as some trainers that go along with it. So, and I always like things like that are sets of cards, not just Pokemon. I know Pokemon's the name of the game, and there's like many thousands of Pokemon and a lot less trainers. But to me, when Pokemon and trainers work together, the game's a lot more interesting.
Yeah, thousands of Pokemon cards, right?
That's true. I mean, yes,
There's 1,000 Pokemon. There's over 1,000 Pokemon, but yeah, there have been the Aquas, like, or what Team Aquas. I'm looking at the Pokebeach article. There are team. Obviously, there was Lance's Charizard V, but that doesn't really count. There's Team Aquas stuff, like Team Aquas Kyogre EX.
Right.
I think so like for example, we were looking at like ball cards. There's a Team Magma's Great Ball or something. There's cards
Yeah.
like that, but they were only in this mini set, and they were also pretty bad. I think the only one that was good, I guess, was Team Magma Secret Base, which is okay. Anyway, it's a weird card. It's like Gape Jar Bog, but then they're they also have different names, right? So we have, if I look up Magmas, there's Team Magma's Baltoy, for example. Wait,
Mm-hmm.
let me find a Pokemon that actually sees like no, I was gonna say let me find a Pokemon that like evolves into Pokemon that actually sees play. Give me a second. Um,
Right. So there's like there's Team Magma, there's Team Aqua, there's also Team Plasma. That one probably is more familiar to people, I would think.
Yeah, but Plasma. So if we have, so I couldn't find a Pokemon that's a Team Aqua one, then expanded that would evolve into Pokemon that sees play in Standard. So I guess we'll go back to Baltoy because there's a Claydol. But this is not a Baltoy. It's actually Team Magma's Baltoy. So you can't evolve this into a normal like Claydol. You can only evolve it into Team Magma's Claydol, and Team Magma's Claydol only
Okay.
evolves from Team Magma's Baltoy. So you can't evolve it from a regular Baltoy, which is kind of, I don't know. It makes them different. You can play four of each, but it's not that interesting. And then
Yeah.
the Plasma Pokemon, such as like Block, Snorlax, don't have Plasma in their name. They have it like a logo, and we've seen stuff like this with I don't know. I'd say it's kind of like the battle styles or like Ancient and Future. And honestly, the partners the yeah partners or like trainers Pokemon are very similar um to things like Team Plasma, Ancient Future. And by the way, Ancient and Future, if you don't know, it's in the game now. So we don't have battle styles in the game. They did have a little bit of overlap, but very little. So I hope it's not just some like name thing. Um, and this is the third year of Scarlet and Violet. So, or well, no, we're in the second. We're going into the third.
Right.
So generally, the first year is a big mechanic, which is but like V's, EXs, other EXs,
GXs.
yeah, GXs, things like that. And then we have the second year, which is normally things that are pretty tame, which are things like I don't know if tame's the right word, but I describe them as tame. You got battle styles, ultra beasts. Um,
I mean, I think
yeah.
battle styles is pretty significant though.
Well, I guess, but compared to like V's, it's not that significant. Um, right?
That's
Like,
true.
so,
That's
and
true.
then,
Now, I do find to me battle styles are more interesting. I love those sets, like I said, of you have Pokemon, you had trainers, you had energy, so it gives you these little packages to kind of try to get creative with, which I find fun.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't think Battle Styles is bad. Just in terms of like what they are, they're just kind of like names on things. Like you could just say like, oh, it helps out water Pokemon instead of saying it helps out Battle Styles. Works a little differently, um,
Yeah,
but yeah, and then we got Ancient and Future or the Paradox Pokemon. They were technically in the first year, but we're mostly in the second year. Right, they weren't mostly in the first year, and they were revealed at
right.
last year's World. So in the third year, you'd get some crazier stuff. That's like what V Stars, tag teams.
Right.
I'm breaks maybe. I don't know. I'm not super familiar with them, but this is probably something that's going to be bigger, right? So it could be
Right.
tag
I mean,
teams.
right. I mean, we had the tag teams back in the GX era, and there's good parallels there. And then we had the V Stars,
Yeah,
right?
V
So
Stars.
which was a big deal with the Sword and Shield era. So we're in Scarlet and Violet, and the EXs, lowercase EXs here we're talking about, are they're very similar to the old GXs, which are uppercase GXs, and I don't think they printed a lowercase GX card yet.
Not yet.
We now that maybe that'll be after the EXs, they'll go to lowercase GXs. But anyway, that's but so we have the EXs very similar to GX Pokemon because their basics and stage one and stage two, and the EXs evolve from just single prize, like an EX stage one evolves from the single prize basic, similar to how the GXs are. So the tag teams were the evolution, the final thing that the third year brought the tag team. So in one sense, there's a lot, it'd be a similar place to bring in tag teams. Where third year, we have a similar mechanic in the EXs, the GXs, maybe tag teams will come back. But, now a lot of people see that as a very downward turn in how the TCG work, though.
Yeah, the tag teams. So if you don't know, they are Pokemon. For example, I have what's generally considered the first one, Pikachu and Zekrom GX, which is a three prizer. All of the tag teams. Well, there were
Mhm.
tag team. You like the tag team trainers. Well, there was supporters, and then there were
Right.
some cards that searched for them. No, mostly tag call, but there was a Mawile. There might have been some other things. But then you have these tag teams which had high HP for basic Pokemon, but gave up three prizes, and they were all basics. So, for example, we got Reshiram and Charizard. I think we got Solgaleo and Lunala as well, and those are like stage twos, not Reshiram, but the other ones are stage twos. But they all appeared as a basic Pokemon, and then
Mhm.
they had GX attacks. We obviously don't have those in standard. We have V-Star powers, but then essentially, as you said, the EXs are kind of like the GXs without the GX attacks. The current EXs, so we could get tag teams, and
Right.
obviously, we saw you mentioned before that it was listed as like Marnie's Morpeko and Grimmsnarl EX, which could be like Pikachu and Zekrom GX. No, it's Morpeko and Grimmsnarl EX.
Right. So, and there seems to be a bit of a split amongst those. The Poke Beach, which is the print, which is something articles you read. They initially thought it was tag teams. Now they've gone away from thinking it's tag teams and thinking it's owners Pokemon. But I believe on PTCG Radio, assuming I got the letters right, I don't always, but you know what I mean. With Wasi, he's still see. I think he's still thinking that tag teams may be coming. So, not certain about that. Obviously, these 3 prize super tanky basics that you chuck into play really warped the game a lot. Um, whereas, so that was kind of like a stage one or a stage two GX, I guess, but you could get into play immediately, which kind of made the low HP single prize Pokemon really tough to play. But then it had the supporters that gave you the two options. That was part of the tag team concept there, or gimmick, depending how you want to phrase it, where it had did one thing on the support, and then you could discard some cards and do something else. And there were even like what tag call and such that could search for two tag team cards, which all kind of made it a little bit interesting from my perspective.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that I do think tag teams or three prize in general, but especially tag teams could be okay. Like I think a lot of people really didn't like them, and they really did warp the game around them. The tag teams just had better stats, and giving
Yeah,
up more prizes obviously is bad, but if you're balanced, like if you have an even prize trade, you're just as easy to set up. If you're a three prizer, that's just way better than being a two prizer because then you only need to you play less copies of your attacker, you play less recovery cards, and you don't need to get it like energy accelerated as often, things like that. So
right.
tag teams need to be balanced, and they weren't balanced. They were very much more powerful, and honestly, the if whatever we get's probably going to be really strong. That's what these third year mechanics tend to be. The second year mechanics are the ones that tend to be more tame, as I said, both in terms of what they do, though they can be interesting, but then also in terms of like power level, like sure, Rapstakers for VMAX was really strong, but and then VMAX of course was also very strong, but then like Arceus V Star and the V Stars really took over,
Hmm.
and
Right.
then obviously V's and VMAXs took over as well.
Yeah, I mean, once when Arceus came out, right, that was in the first set of the V Stars, I think, was just tremendous, right? That became kind of the deck and a very expensive card to get. And then Palkia, obviously, Pokemon likes to have a big, powerful card that they want and encourage people to get and play, which isn't always great. And now, to me, what thinking about the tag teams and also thinking about the V Stars, I like the format most when you have like when the tag teams are in the format and the V's and the V Maxes around. I thought that was more interesting, and I in a lot of ways we're there at that same place now. We have the V Stars and the EXs, and the V Stars are largely getting forgotten, but they're still very solid cards, and I think having the combination is nice. I'll miss next year when we don't have any V's and we don't have what we're coming after EX. We're just in the EX era. To me, it's a little bit more limiting personally.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think also one reason you said that like V stars aren't like so good right now, or at least not, they're kind of forgotten about. A lot of
Hmm.
the ways that the cards in the Sword and Shield era, where the V stars are from, that are still in standard, they interact with Pokemon V's, so they're
Yeah.
not really intended to interact with cards in the same way that we actually have, which obviously means like for example, Serena was a really good card, but it gusts up Pokemon V's, but most people aren't playing Pokemon V's, or at least not that many, so
Right.
it's kind of like bad. It's not like completely useless, but it's not great, and so that's pretty disappointing. But then they did start doing stuff with Rulebox Pokemon to make certain cards kind of interact better with the future. And these cards coming in the third year are gonna be with the next generation really as much as they will be with this generation. So especially like the later ones. So we're gonna like see what's gonna happen
Right.
with that to see if they're
Right.
gonna be like future proofed.
Right. Because with the tag team Pokemon, they were basics, so they kind of seem to work better. Well, I mean, the V Stars obviously they evolved from Vs. Some of the V Stars had evolved. They would all come when they printed a V Star. I think they always printed a V with it, or at least almost always a new V. But there might have been an older V that made it that was actually better, right? So you lose some of that. Plus, they were tended to interact with the V Maxes, whereas the tag teams were, I think, a little bit more self-sufficient. So they seem to work a little better in the V area than I think the V stars are working at the end of the EX era.
Yeah, I will still say that like the tag teams kind of get pushed out of the format with by like the end of the time that they are in format. But yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Partly because things get better in certain ways, and also things get forgotten too, right? And as things don't get attention, um, the decks, some of the decks exist some to a certain extent, but unless you have thousands, but when you have thousands of people working on a certain set of cards, it's gonna get a lot better than other things.
yeah, but I think like for example, Pikachu and Zekrom, it had a lot of support in the form of cards like Thunder Mountain, Prism Star, and Zero Aura GX, Electro
Hmm.
Power, things like that that then rotated. Um, I think that's a bit of an extreme case. It's not like Pikachu and Zekrom really was ever that bad, but right before it rotated, it was pretty underwhelming. You look at its prize trade with things like, for example, Leafeon VMAX, it just like struggles to keep up, and so I definitely think that like we'll see. That I think the new Pokemon might be really good. I hope they're not like super broken. I don't think the honestly I don't love either option. I think tag teams conceptually are kind of fun. It's like, oh, I got these two Pokemon teaming up, and if you look at them, they often have like interesting things that work with like that are kind of based off of the different Pokemon in them. Every Pokemon thematically has things that it they kind of like define it. But then you have, for example, Magikarp and Wailord, a really funny combination. You have the high HP
Hmm.
of Wailord. You have these like weird, goofy attacks of Magikarp, and then you have Pokemon like honestly, I'm not like super familiar with like all the cards of every Pokemon, but
Right.
you have a lot of like mixing and matching of different aspects of different Pokemon to really create these interesting Pokemon, but then also they're like kind of unfun at times. And then Ultra's Pokemon to be are pretty like pretty nothing, to be honest, kind of boring. Um, and so I feel like I mean, they're theoretically kind of interesting if you have a favorite trainer and they get like a cool Pokemon, but there's only so much they can do. They can't obviously include every trainer, and so we'll see exactly what we get with that. I think there's a pretty good chance we're getting owner's Pokemon, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know about tag teams because tag teams also they can't just reprint tag teams because they're GXs. They could reprint. They could do something new with tag teams, like they could, I don't know. I feel like if they did like tag team EXs, that'd be like a big mess.
Yeah. I mean, since we have three different versions of EX Pokemons, Pokemon doesn't worry about that too much, but they could obviously just give it a different name, the tag team, and have it be the same thing. Of course, I look, I don't love the idea of a three prize Pokemon just going into play. I don't think it's great for the game. Generally, right? We're trying, the games taking a little longer is a good thing. Opening up to lower HP decks are good. I'm looking here. I think the V Unions for a three prize Pokemon, it's not coming back, but that at least was a little more balanced, just because V Unions had their inherent
I don't know. I
difficulty.
don't know if I'd say they're balanced. I feel like they're like, I mean, they're worse. I feel like they were really bad, like really, really
That's
bad.
true. I mean, the Mewtwo V Union actually was even marginally competitively viable, right?
Well, yeah, but I feel like if the best card of the mechanic is kind almost
Yeah.
is like borderline competitively viable, that's like not great balance. I feel like, tag teams, like not all the tag teams are competitively viable, but most were. And the best decks when they came out were all tag teams, so um,
Yeah.
that wasn't great. But Mutants were like really bad.
That's true. I mean, the other thing, which it could it be the mega evolutions? I don't know how that worked because like Arceus was part of one of these like a Legends expansion, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Kind of. But I do want to say there were some Pokemon that are essentially confirmed. A bunch of new EXs confirmed, right?
Hmm.
And you mentioned wanting longer games, right? And one of those Pokemon was
Yeah.
Snorlax. So Block Snorlax EX coming in. Um,
Yeah, as an EX, so you're never going to knock it out, and probably make the ability even a little stronger, right?
mhm,
I got to imagine, like your Pokemon can't play any cards from hand for the rest of the game, maybe, right?
something
Along
like that.
with
Something like that.
knocking out the switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, so yeah, Mega Evolution's probably. I don't know that could come back. I think it'll come back. I think it'll come back later in the year, though. That's my prediction.
Okay, there'll be like a big mechanic for the calendar year 2025, and there'll be because there always are multiple mechanics, right? Like we had
Not always,
Radiance
but usually,
added, but
especially in the
that
third
wasn't
year.
like the only. Yeah, like Radiance got in. I what else? That there were other mechanics
Well,
added
that yeah,
around
V
that,
Stars. But yeah, so
right?
you
So
said Arceus V Star came out with Legend Arceus. I don't think it did,
I,
or I think it was
no, I think I'm wrong about that.
I think
Uh,
so Legends Arceus had the like Hisuian Pokemon, and then it had Palkia
okay,
V Star, or yeah, Origin Form, the Elegant Palkia V Star, and those things, and then you had you had some different things, but that was the second set of the year, so not the first one. The first one was separate. That was like a normal set.
okay. So I mean, we're going to get some. We'll get some mechanic announcement at Worlds. We just have to assume that's what they've always done, unless they're just going to give up on the TCG and it's all going to be about Pocket. But I assume that's not the case, right? They while live is its own issue, obviously the IRL TCG is very strong, so that's not going anywhere. I do want to talk at some point about other mechanics that we've kind of liked in the past as well, right? But is what other thoughts about what we might see from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think the megas. We should talk about the megas some. So
Yeah.
I don't know how to search these in in Limitless, but so let's say what's like one of the most iconic megas. I'll say Mega Audino, not the best, but one of the coolest, I guess. And it's Mega
Hmm.
Pokemon. It's essentially a stage one. It's not a stage one, but it's essentially a stage one. But it has this Mega Evolution rule. By the way, these are two prizers. So VMAXs were three prizers, Megas were two prizers. But when you evolve into them, your turn ends. But then you have this tool called Spirit Link. Well, no, sorry. The tool's called. There's a bunch of different Spirit Links. So if you're playing Mega Audino EX, which evolves from Audino EX, you can play Audino Spirit Link and attach it to Audino EX before you evolve into Mega Audino EX,
Right.
and then your turn doesn't end. And then, yeah. So obviously they're from EXs, so that's not in the game right now. So if we have like, so they could do Mega EXs that are like lowercase EXs, and
Right.
I don't know.
Now,
Hopefully, I don't
now
do like
part
tag teams and megas and lowercase EXs.
tag teams and mega tag teams.
Yeah. Well, there was
Right.
Mega
Because
Lopunny
like
and Jigglypuff, and there was Mega Sableye and Tyranitar. So there were mega tag teams.
yeah. Cause, so like so like there was Mega Blastoise, right? And Blastoise EX. Well, Blastoise is a stage two, but Blastoise EX uppercase EX was a basic. And then the Mega Blastoise EX evolved from the basic Mega Blastoise EX. So I don't know what how Megas would come to like a stage two. Would there be a separate EX, basic EX to get into play, or is it now become a fourth stage? Right? I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
kind of
that would work
like
in the game.
breaks or something. Um, yeah, I feel like stage two's
Um,
like I remember stage three. Stage two's like kind of could see play. They kind of have seen play at times, but not commonly. I mean, obviously they haven't really been a thing usually, but when they have, they're usually not that good.
right. I mean, at least, especially if they wanted to give it like a third prize on it and make it super overpowered in a sense. If it's a third evolution, it kind of balances things out, right? And with the breaks, I mean, the megas when you evolved it from hand, your turn ended, right? So, unless you had the special Spirit Link tool attached. So that was kind of how they were looking to balance things out. And I don't know how powerful. It was a long time. It was before we were playing the EXs, the old EXs, upper. Although they are in full expanded format, right? Just not in live expanded, correct?
Um, what the capital EXs?
The capital EXs.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think you can play any of them in live expanded. They are in live though. You can like find them there.
You can look at the arts,
You can
and the game
craft them,
shouldn't
I
break
think.
if you do that. You probably can craft them in some year. You might be able to actually play them, but I would hold off on crafting them for now.
Yeah, but
Um,
do you want Megas to be in the game or not?
I don't think so. I mean, look, if the choice is megas versus tag teams versus owners, I would probably prefer owners just because I think tag teams are a little too much in the game. I gotta say, so if it's three prizes and all that in a basic, I don't love that. From what I've seen of the owner, as we've tried to research a little bit, the owners, Pokemon, as well as some of the trainers to go with it, were underwhelming, is what I'll say. So if the owners, as I understand it, is the big new mechanic, it's not going to add that much to the game, which is a little disappointing. And expect it'll be something a little bit more exciting than that. I gotta say.
Yeah, I definitely think tag teams like they were problematic because they're too good, but I feel like if they're rebalanced, they'd be pretty fun. Um, and I think the Scarlet and Violet era has done a pretty good job of balancing things. I don't know what other people's thoughts are on that, so if you're watching YouTube, leave it in the comments because that's something I'm really interested in hearing about. But yeah,
Yeah.
Mega's definitely they're kind of a weird mechanic. They're definitely not one of my favorite mechanics. They're probably one of my least favorite mechanics with like the spirit links and stuff. They're kind of weird.
Right. And of course, it could be something completely brand new, right? I mean, I guess the Terra Pokemon, obviously, first they introduced the Terras, which were just with the EXs, but it just had the bench protection. basically when the type changed, but now they're starting to do more with the Terras. So I assume it's nothing new with the Terras per se. I guess that's kind of been explored mostly, right? That
Yeah,
we shouldn't
especially with the
expect that.
Stellars. Um, I think it's
Right.
explored mostly. And then with Legend ZA, there it could possibly be something that have to do with well, so this Legend ZA is based on X and Y. It's the old X and Y region,
Hmm.
and so X and Y had a bunch of different mechanics. The one was Megas, which is maybe the big one, but then they did have Fairy type, which isn't really a mechanic at all, but it's a new type. I hope it's not. We're not getting Fairy type. I know some people would like that. Obviously, I don't like Fairy type. That would be a
It's,
bit unfortunate for me, but um,
you don't want to have to rename your channel to
no,
11
no,
type.
that'd be not ideal. But um, yeah, fairy type is like a thing. It's kind of so fairy Pokemon right now are grouped into psychic, which is like fine. I don't know. Fairy is definitely one of those like weird things. It like was in the TCG, then not for very long though. I mean, it was like 6 years, but they also were never like that good. I mean, there are times when they're good, but um, yeah.
Right.
And then it could. You don't have much to say about fairy, right?
No, well, I mean, the big issue with fairy Pokemon is they weren't printed all that long, so they're just you can play decks and expand it, but there's not, they just don't have a very deep card pool to choose from, so they're just very underwhelming. Even if there were good fairy Pokemon, it's just not enough to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chunk, but it's not great, right? But then the other thing was Pokeball. I don't know all the mechanics. I might be forgetting some, but there were breaks, which are a pretty cool mechanic. Which
Hmm.
I mentioned that like Megas could function similar to them. So the best break. Oh, so they're sideways. So I want to talk about these a little. They're like level X's, I guess. I don't know much about level X's to be honest. But the best Pokemon break was definitely Greninja break. They're sideways cards and have so this one has it's like an ability. And it has HP, but it doesn't have like retreat cost and like attacks. Some have attacks, some they just have one thing. And you put it
Okay.
sideways on top of the top half of your Pokemon. Greninja Break. So Greninja, of course, is a stage 2 Pokemon. Greninja Break is essentially a stage 3. The saw play, one of the weirder decks in standard, and so you're able to use the attacks and abilities of the previous, like of the stage 2 or whatever you evolved from. For example, there
Hmm.
was like Xerneas. I assume there's an Inveltal Break as well. I don't really know much about it. But there was a no, maybe there wasn't an Inveltal Break. I don't know. But there's Xerneas Break. Oh, there is a Inveltal Break. Anyway, there's Xerneas Break, which has like an attack. But then it's a Xerneas is a basic, and Xerneas Break is a stage or essentially stage 1. Even though technically the breaks are all the same stage, it's the stage is break, and they're all golden. I personally never liked the look of them anyway, but that's kind of just a random thing. But and then you get this extra, you get an HP buff essentially, and you get, which I don't know. I don't know if any of them have HPs on the break that might be lower than their HPs now. That would be unfortunate if you evolved and you like knocked yourself out. But um, so then they have like an attacker ability which you can use, or you can use the previous evolutions. So they're kind of interesting. I think level X's were like it, but a little different. They had some weird things going on with them.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a tool almost, right? A tool that buffs the HP and gives an attack option in a sense, right? Um, it's weird, and of course, Pokemon. It's kind of it gets me thinking a bit of V Unions too, because V Unions you have four cards that become one Pokemon. Here you've got a card that you lay the wrong way into play, right? So it's
Yeah,
all a
kind of
little awkward.
like Legends too. Oh yeah, so I do have a Pokemon level X, which is Luxray GL level X, um, which is a level up. I don't know how status. Right, this is an old. I mean, it's not actually. It's a celebrations like promo thing, but it's essentially an old card. It says it has like an ability, but you can only evolve your active Pokemon onto it, and I don't think it's evolving. It might not have any stage. I don't know. And then you can use like the essentially abilities and attacks of the previous evolution, but you can't actually see them, which is like kind of weird. But yeah, I think they leveled up, not evolved, which was weird. Um, and then like this is also it's Luxray GL, which is not Luxray. which is kind of like an owner's Pokemon, and yeah, so I guess we came full circle with that one.
Back to the owners. Yeah, the G. Yeah, I mean the owners often had these one or two letter abbreviations, and then it's and if you're not familiar with the formats back in the day, it's even more confusing, right? What it's like? Well, what does GL mean, and how does it work? So, um, yeah, it's weird. And like I'm looking at this GL Pokemon, it's got a Poke Power, which is not the same thing as ability. And then some of the older cards had Pokemon Power. So Pokemon kind of keeps doing these same things ever so slightly different over the years too, which adds, sometimes just makes the game kind of confusing.
Yeah. Oh, and then we have. I want to talk about some. I don't know Hollands. I don't know what Hollands is, or is it Hollands? I don't know how to pronounce it, but there's Holland's Electrode, which was their Magneton and Magnemite. And they have
Hmm.
this I guess Magneton. Yeah, those are the ones. So they have this like thing. It's not really an ability. They have like an attack, but then it says you may attach this as an energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon that already has an energy attached card attached to it, and then you return that other energy to your hand, and then it's essentially a double rainbow energy, and it's a special energy, kind of like the Charger Bug from I don't remember what set it's from. I think it was somewhere in oh, Unified Minds. Here we go, which is like it's a Pokemon that's like a special energy. Yeah. Anyway, so Pokemon has some pretty weird mechanics. Hopefully, we're not getting anything too complicated so that like no one can ever understand it though.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot better. Although, I was they recently finally issued an official ruling on the Greninja EX with its attack and the way they interact with Double Turbo and the way they wrote the text on at least the English English translation. It sounds backwards of what it does. So they don't have everything worked out all the time, I will say.
Yeah, but definitely like the rulings are like okay, even though like worst like most confusing rulings are okay compared to some like the old rulings which didn't make any sense. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
there used to be cards that like essentially didn't work at all. Like they had there's like oh you have this ability, but then like for example if you had a card like Luminion V, um or no not like I guess like some ability lock Pokemon and then but it doesn't actually ever ability lock them because like it ability locks them after they've already used their ability, so it's like pointless. But anyway, so you said you wanted to talk about some mechanics that are already in the game right now, right?
well, I mean, I'm not okay in the game now. So honestly, when I talked before, I figured we might lead with that to give people an idea of things. So, I'm not sure how much mechanics of the game there are worthwhile talking about at this point. I mean, obviously, there's like the ancient and the future Pokemon, the Paradox Pokemon, which is fine. It's similar to the battle styles, although probably it's a little less developed. I think I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, we have
Um,
had them for the whole year, which I wasn't so sure about, and the beginning of last year. Sorry, end of last year. So I hope we get
yeah,
them next year. I mean, they're kind of boring because there's only a certain set of Pokemon you can choose from. There's only a few trainers we've gotten, and also
right.
it's like they're all basics. But
Right. If it's if it's following kind of the pattern of the battle styles, that just was around for the one year and then it stopped.
yeah,
So
I mean, we got like we got a few Pokemon the next year. But yeah, I think it's probably gonna be like Ultra Beast though, if I had to guess.
that we might get something like Ultra Beasts.
Well, I mean Ancient and Future are like Ultra Beast, right? And
Okay.
I think we'll get them next year some.
Oh, Ultra Beasts to add to Ancient and Future, kind of like how because they did start the Paradox Pokemon before the calendar year because we had with the battle styles we had the Rapid and Single Strike, but then at the very end of that year, that's when we got the third one.
Yeah, so we could get some other one. I don't think we're gonna.
Fusion Strike.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Well, we could get present Pokemon, so just regular Pokemon. Um, okay, it's like, well, look at this new Pokemon. It's a Cyclizar. It's a what's a Pokemon that has both? It's a Donphan. Whoa. Um, yeah, just a normal Pokemon. No, but yeah, no. I think we are gonna see some though, some Ancient Future Pokemon next year. but probably not too many.
Yeah, probably at the tail end of that. So we do have the Radiant mechanic in the game again, which I guess is a mechanic. It's a little different than some. It's obviously more limited. I don't, and I think it's fine. But I think to me that what hurts the what historic it just I think in a historical perspective when I look back on it, the fact that like one or two of the Radiants, particularly Radiant Greninja, is just so good, and it makes and you can only have one in the deck. It kind of degrades to me in my eyes the value of the Radiant Pokemon, right? Because it's like you want to play this one unless you have a really good reason not to, and therefore, you know, what's the value of most of the Radiants are just complete filler, right? Which usually for a special mechanic like that, you'd expect more high quality Pokemon than I think they gave us with that.
Yeah, it's not like a main mechanic, and A-Specs also kind of fall into that trap. Um, they have really all of them have some amount of value, but there are certainly better ones and worse ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time you use Radiant Charger Bug?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever used it. I think I've seen it, but I think
You
there's
know,
some that I haven't seen.
I mean, most of them see some play, right?
The
But there's a
Radiants or
few
the
that
A-Specs?
the Radiance.
Do they?
Maybe not. Like I think amongst the A specs, though, look, well, the Radiance you have obviously Radiant Greninja that's very widely played, Radiant Charizard that's played some, and then but a big drop off, and then a huge
Yeah.
drop off after Radiant Charizard, right?
Yeah, I think Radiant Alex. I mean, no, I think go play Radiant Alexander, Radiant Sarina, um, some, and then
Yeah, look,
and
some see
Radiant
play
Hisuian
Radiant.
Caesar, please. Sees play as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can play Radiant Venusaur if you have the right style deck, and people play Radiant Jirachi. They used to. You hate that Pokemon.
Well, its
You always said
attacks
it was.
like double coin flip. You need double heads to knock out. It's random. It was so bad with Path as well. People would like play Path in almost every deck, and then you get
Yeah,
Path, and then it just you just like it doesn't do anything. It just gets knocked out, and then that's it. So
Y-
and it was pretty
y-
pretty disappointing a lot of the time.
yeah. Look, I mean, the ability is if it was knocked out, and as long as the opponent didn't have Path in play, which obviously has been rotated a while now, you got to search your deck for any three cards. So that was really that aspect was very good for a deck that wants to hide and just set up a little bit, right? So it had some value, but obviously that versus Radiant Greninja, you know which card's good just by with its ability, which card's going to go in most decks. So it's not really a choice there about that. So I think the Radiants they've been fine. I don't think losing those is going to be a huge blow when we have rotation. And obviously, I don't know when the new mechanic gets added. It might not get added till after rotation, or at best, it will only be around very briefly, like with Radiance and V Stars. So hopefully, we get a new mechanic that briefly overlaps those. That's when things get the most fun, I will say.
Yeah, that'll be cool because, and I do like that they did that with the Paradox Pokemon. I feel like the Paradox Pokemon were like kind of boring. I mean, not super boring, but they started off pretty boring. Um,
Yeah,
but then I don't know. I think that like they turned into something pretty cool. Notably, Iron Crown EX and the Single Price Roaring Moon have kind of elevated them to tying in the whole like group of cards together. I feel like, and so I'm interested in seeing what they're gonna do with the mechanic. If we're gonna get like some new mechanic, we are getting Stellar Pokemon this year, so that's gonna be cool. And
right.
we have what, two more sets, I think, right? Two more main sets.
Yes, yeah, two main sets. Yeah, I believe. Yeah, yes, we do. We've had what two main sets, and is it two special sets or one? I lose track, but
I don't remember when Paldean Fates was, to be honest, but Paldean Fates was two, yeah. So Paldean Fates was this year, but I was grouped in with like the previous year. And that's more so where it is grouped in with. The cards are, wait, what block are we in now? Um,
uh,
we're
for
in the
what do we?
H block, yeah. So a lot of them
Yeah.
were the G block. I don't know if they all were, but they pretty much all were. You got cards like Kilowattrel, which is G block. Even though I think is Dartrix, yeah, Dartrix is H block, so you can play United Wings with only Dartrix, which won't be so good, but um,
No.
that'll be a fun experiment. Not really, it'll just be sad, but yeah. So that was like I group it in with last year, but we technically have had too many sets this year.
Right. In current mechanics, we have the A-Specs that brought back this year, and at some point there was an announcement about the A-Specs, I believe, right? I don't remember the timing.
I think that was
What did?
with Paradox Pokemon. We saw them at the same time.
Okay. And was that announced at last year's Worlds? Did that
Yeah, I
include
believe
A-Specs,
so. Yeah.
Paradox, and A-Specs?
Yeah,
So
A-Specs were just like kind of hinted at. I mean, obviously we kind of knew what A-Specs were, and they really were pretty much what we'd expected, except with new types of cards, which kind of had to be the case anyways because of the tool
right.
change, and they didn't want to like just remove tools, which would be kind of weird.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's another mechanic where they brought back that's a case where they brought back they brought back the very same mechanic with some of the being the very same exact cards that with this I believe the same text. I don't think it was an errata to the old text, but I could be wrong about some about the, I guess what was it just Master Ball that they
Well,
brought
they brought
back?
back Master Ball, which there are old Master Balls, but um, there's Master Ball, which is like Great Ball apparently, but yeah, and then there was Scoop Up Cyclone,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
which I think has the I think they both have the same text.
Yeah, so we saw that. Are there any of the current mechanics you want to talk about or no? Because there's like a couple of older mechanics that I think I'd like to talk
Yeah, no,
about
let's just talk about the
as
older.
well.
I feel like the current ones are like kind of, I mean, they're not boring, but we've talked about them a lot, like all the time.
Right, and everybody knows what they are, so it's less interesting. So one of my a mechanic I really like is the Prism Star mechanic, and that's a mechanic I would really like to see brought back to the game. I gotta say, it's kind of like um the Radiant, say Pokemon, in that you can only have one copy, but it's one copy of that particular card. So you can have as many Prism Stars, different Prism Stars in your deck as you want, which I like that. So obviously, if you could have a whole bunch of Radiants, I don't want to see everybody playing a Radiant Greninja and Radiant Charizard in the same deck. So that's probably good. But here, you could have a mix of Radiants, which sometimes would happen. And it wasn't just Pokemon; it was trainers. They had supporters, they had stadiums. I'm not sure. Special energies. I'm looking here. So, it was a nice mix of things that did different things from Tapu Koko, that was a Pokemon that helps you get energies into play. There are a number of things. A stadium like Heat Factory, Black Market, to make, you could toss that in your turn this VMAX deck to give up one less prize card. So, and things like that. So it gave a number of nice options, I thought, with some of the Prism Stars cards. And when it was knocked out of play, it went into the Lost Zone. So that was the other aspect with it. That was a big deal, right? You couldn't then ever recover it. So once it was done, it was done for the game.
Yeah, I will say, obviously, Lost Zone in standard now, but it's not in, it's like not being printed now. Lost Zone cards haven't been printed in Scarlet and Violet, so unfortunately,
Right.
I don't think we're gonna see anything that similar to this. We could maybe later on, um, but then also the stadiums I think had a special thing where it says they couldn't be bumped by items or supporters, um,
Right.
which is like kind of good. But so your opponent couldn't like lost vacuum it. So that's like kind of fun. But then also Radiant Pokemon, you probably just and especially A specs, you just like chuck all of them in your deck, right? If you could do that, but that's not how Prism Stars
Yeah.
worked because they were really type specific and like deck specific. So
Right.
like a lot of the Pokemon only helped their specific type, and then same thing with honestly a lot of the trainers, the special energies. We had Beast Energy, which helped the Ultra Beasts, and we had Super Boost Energy, which was pretty niche here to be honest, but not super niche, but it says when this attached to a stage 2 Pokemon, it provides every energy, but only provides one energy at a time. But if you have 3 or more stage 2 Pokemon in play, it provides um, 4 energy of every type. So, or 4 at a time, every type, but only 4 at
Yeah.
a time. So that's pretty funny. Allowed for some pretty crazy things, but also like let's be honest, that's hard to pull off. But if you can, then you get really cool value out of it. So it's a pretty fun card that is kind of silly. Some of them are really silly. Some of them really powerful. Some of them are disruption focused, but you can only play one. So, for example, Lysina
Right.
Prism Star can like lost zone a bunch of your opponent's cards, but you can only use that once. There are some that enabled entire decks, such as Lance's Prism Star, enabling I think it was like a Kyogre Amazing Rare deck with like Dragonite from from Unified
Mm.
Minds, which is in a theme deck, and it which was in the Soaring Storm theme deck, and we actually couldn't play this internationally. It was only playable in Japan, but it was still pretty cool and a funny combo.
Okay, I guess that was what because the rotation being off sync. I guess.
Yeah, right now, Japan and internationally, I think rotations. It's not at the same time. I don't remember, but it's pretty similar. But back then, it
Right.
like was completely different. Like it was like a year off or something, almost. So
Right. I mean, now the big difference is Japan gets the cards first, obviously. A couple months, a month or two first, and earlier, and then some cards obviously with a bigger delay. But generally, it's a month or two beforehand. So yeah, I mean, look, the Prism Stars were interesting, right? They like you said, they were different focus, so you weren't going to chuck all of them in your deck because it wouldn't be synergistic. But the idea of a Prism Star to a deck, and it's not like every deck even had to have it, but a lot of decks might play one, maybe two Prism Stars, depending what it was, which I think just went with again helps with different deck building options, right? Different types, different deck styles had different Prism Star trainers and stuff to go along with it.
yeah, and also I think they were balanced pretty well. I can't think of any that were bad. I mean, I'm sure I just don't think of them because they are bad, but um, I think there were a lot of like really fun ones that some enabled big combos, but obviously it's a one of card in your deck. But they're really cool. Ditto Prism Star is probably I think it's a lot of people's I don't know if favorite card's the right term, but probably favorite Prism Star and a really fun card which says it's a completely Almighty Evolution. It says once on your turn, you can put any stage one onto this Pokemon. You essentially can evolve any stage one into it under normal evolution conditions. So that's pretty
Right.
fun. It allows you to smooth that consistency and add tech lines. This card saw so much play and was definitely one of the coolest cards potentially ever. I don't know. It's kind of like Zoroark from what's now an expanded. They could like switch into stage
Right.
ones, except it actually was like easier to use, but only a one of.
Right. Only one in the deck, and of course you can't recover it. So once it's gone, it's gone. So yeah, I mean I think to me the Prism Stars were really one of my favorite mechanics, just because I think it was pretty balanced. A lot of different decks could use different ones, but it wasn't required either, right? Like when we go, because like with tag teams in my mind apart, because there's talk that might come back. Like tag teams where you kind of had to play a tag team deck, or else you were really going to be in an uphill struggle here, right? It's not you didn't have to play Prism Stars in your deck, and it didn't dominate the decks really that even had it. So I think it's pretty balanced, right? Like when the V Stars came out for you kind of for a period of time you kind of had to play it. The V Stars were almost what you needed to play between Arceus and then Palkia. Really did dominate things. I mean, Mew was around, so you could play Mew VMAX, but it pushed just a lot of things out of the game where something like the Prism Stars doesn't do that, which I like about it.
Yeah, and also if one was broken, for example, with Ace specs, both the old Ace specs and the new ones, which are the same essentially, but
Yeah.
have different cards. There's been one that's really the best, and it's kind of pushed out the other ones, not entirely or anything like that, but probably for some people it's almost pushed out entirely. But that's not how Prism Star works. If there's one Prism Stars work, if there's one that's like really broken, whatever, you'll play that one, but then you can still play the other ones, which are good. I'm trying to think of are there any other mechanics you want to highlight?
Um, Nothing. I'm trying to scan through things. Nothing really. Look, I am excited with the current stuff to see Terra's with the new what's the new thing that's
Stellar.
coming out with the Terras, the Stellar. I'm glad. I'm looking forward to that coming out. Just hopefully making the Terra Pokemon more its own thing. Because honestly, at this point, Terra Pokemon are kind of a forgotten thing. It might change type, and you're aware of that. But that's about it. There's still a tendency if you can still almost it still happens that people attack Terra Pokemon on the bench, right? Because it's such a it's such it's kind of almost insignificant what they are, right? A lot of the time, so you kind of forget that that's part of the game. So I'd like to see Terra Pokemon become a little bit more of their own thing. So hopefully that happens.
Yeah, and with the set Stellar Crown, which is out in Japan, essentially the equivalent set, there are Stellar Pokemon, which are Terra Pokemon EX. They don't change type, I don't believe, but they have these attacks that are 3 different energy types, which are pretty interesting. Honestly, they're kind of bad. I'm nervous they're just gonna be like really garbage, but or broken, right? We saw Amazing Rare is pretty similar to this, but then you had a bunch of cards to support the Terra Pokemon, which include any Terras, not just Stellars, which we got Noctowl, um, what else? We got Glass Trumpet, which is kind of color support, but kind of Stellar support, or Terra support, but then Stellar support. And then Briere, which is kind of something. It allows you to take extra prizes, but whatever. Charizard DX is going to be taking extra prizes. And then you have this Ace Spec, which helps you attack easier, which is really nice. And the stadium to expand your bench. So we have some pretty cool things there. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that in the future. But honestly, even just these few Pokemon still is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad for that. And another mechanic that it kind of ties in is the Ultra Beast because it ties in partly with the GX Pokemon. It wasn't just GX; it was basic Pokemon, single prize. I don't know if they were all basics, right? All the Ultra Beasts.
No, not not Magneto.
No, I'm looking.
But all the other ones were basics.
Okay, just there only was one basic one evolution. So and then that had some items or some trainers that went with it, right? So which was nice to see. Again, I like seeing trainers to go with it. It was single prize Pokemon and GX Pokemon. So if something like that were to come along, some mechanic that kind of ties into the EX, but also non-EXs and also come in with some trainers that go along with it. So things like that open up opportunities. I thought it was just a nice little thing. It wasn't the end all and be all, but that's probably was like one of those small secondary mechanics that was added, but just adds a little interest.
Which Ultra Beasts?
Yeah, Ultra Beasts.
I mean, they were like the main mechanic of the year. I feel like they're definitely one of the of the second year. Okay. Right? But they're pretty underwhelming in the third year. We only got a few that were like good. We had Blacephalon.
Right.
That was it pretty much. But Blacephalon was certainly good. The fire one, we got the psychic one, which was okay. I mean, it saw play, but I didn't really see play later on. I mostly saw play with Malamar. But then certainly like Buzzwole and Buzzwole G. I mean, Buzzwole is arguably one of the best single prize Pokemon ever, and at least raw attack. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but it is very good. And then we got the infamous Pheromosa GX, which is the Donk Pokemon. And then it's one of the Donk Pokemon. I don't know if it's the main one. Well, right now it's not. Right now the main Pokemon is Dusclops and Duskull. But then we had Blacephalon GX, obviously a very good card. Both Magneto GXs were pretty solid. But I honestly really like Pokemon like Celesteela. Magneto was really good. Magneto actually might be the best Ultra Beast, the single prize Magneto. But then we had like the Necrozmas, the special Necrozmas, and we got some pretty interesting things.
Yeah, so so Pokemon does a nice job of adding some mechanics, and I'm sure, how well this related the TCG to the video game is always an interesting question too. So whatever mechanic they add to the TCG, whether it really relates well to the video game or not, that you never fully know that. So trying to base it on that, it'll have some relationship to it, but how closely it follows it is a bit hit or miss, I think.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that's all for today's podcast. We ended early, not even that early, by like a couple of minutes. But anyways, we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Check us out on YouTube at Uncommon Fossil and 10 Types, and also check us out on podcasting platforms if you want to listen to us there, which might just be more convenient for you. But if you want to contact us and if you want to leave comments, leave them on YouTube on whichever channel you want to ask about or whatever, comment on.
Yeah.
But we hope you enjoyed, and we're excited to see you in the next episode.
And just let us know your favorite mechanics if you want to in the comments, and also if you have what your predictions are for Worlds, because they're going to release something. There's some speculation out there, but what do you think it's going to be? So just in the comments is a chance to share your thoughts there. And thanks for listening, and take care.
See ya.